Financial leadership is changing. CFOs no longer record history. They make history. This podcast will help you become a better leader, strategic thinker, and digital visionary. Welcome to Secrets of Rockstar CFOs, the ultimate podcast for chief financial officers. Follow along as Jack McCullough engages in exciting chats with accomplished CFOs, learning how they overcame obstacles and positioned their companies for the future. Here's your host, Jack McCullough.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. I'm your host, Jack McCullough. You can follow us online at rockstarcfos.com. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to our two sponsors, Payhawk and Planful, who make this and all of our episodes possible. We have a great guest today, so let's get to it. Rock on. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. We have an absolutely fantastic guest today, so we're going to get right into it. I'm really excited to welcome Claire Bramley, who is the CFO of Teradata. Teradata is a cloud-based data analytics company specializing in large-scale data warehousing and analytics solutions. Claire, welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs.
Thank you, Jack. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. And, I only summarized your company in about a sentence, but I'm wondering if you could give sort of the 10,000-foot view.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as you said, we are a cloud-first data and analytics software company. We have been going through a very exciting transformation over the past 4 years when our new CEO, Steve McMillan, joined us. And previously, we were very well known in the on-premise data and analytics space. And what we did is we took all that knowledge, all that expertise, and transferred that to a cloud native environment. So we are now available in the cloud in a native way across AWS, across Google, and across Microsoft. So across all the three big CSPs. And what we're known for is our clear power, performance, and scale when it comes to managing large amounts of data. So we're with the top 10,000 enterprise companies across industries like financial services, healthcare, transport, communication, areas like that just are managing such large amounts of data and helping them with their data and analytics, running their operations behind the scenes. And we're known for, as I mentioned, performance at scale. And we are on a journey to move those customers that want to be in the cloud from on-premise to the cloud. And those of them that have a hybrid environment, so a mix between on-premise and cloud. We are the only one that offers that true hybrid experience.
No, and that's a great position to say the least. And I'm looking forward to talking a little about that. But I'd love to talk a little about your background before we get into that. And from your accent, you grew up in the UK. I'm sure my listeners have figured that out. So where did you grow up?
Yes, I did. So I spent most of my childhood in a lovely city called Canterbury in Kent. So many of you may know the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Canterbury Tales. And I have to say I was very fortunate to grow up there. And then I did go to university in the UK as well. A university very well known for its sports and its business school called Loughborough. If you look at the pronunciation and the spelling of that, you'll actually look at it and think it says Luga Baruga, because that's how it's spelled. But it's Loughborough, and it's based in the Midlands in the middle of the UK, and that kind of got me into where I am today. So I'm happy to talk a bit about that. But I started pretty early being interested in finance, as I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk a little about that. And in fact, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you picked up finance at 14. And I'm like, she seems so normal. She doesn't seem like a true nerd. But how did you know at such a young age at 14? And just to give you context, at 14, I was convinced I was going to be a professional wrestler.
Oh, well, there we go. So I started to study business studies. So it was more about the broader business environment, but it was the finance piece that really struck a chord with me. Being able to tell a story through the numbers and being able to relate it to decisions that are being made and the case studies that we were managing. And I got on really well with my business studies teacher. and I studied with him for 4 years, and from 14 up to 18. And I think he just encouraged and supported my curiosity and my interest, and gave me great case studies about companies that I could study and understand, gave me great feedback. And I think that just fostered my enjoyment for being able to connect the dots through the numbers when it comes to running a business and making business decisions.
It's interesting because you use the word storytelling, and if it's such an important and underrated aspect of being a successful CFO in the modern world, right? I mean, it's amazing, and I apologize for having referred to you as a nerd. I was only kidding. Hopefully that came across. But
I call myself a nerd too. Don't worry about it.
but anyway, it's interesting. Even at like 14, you saw finance as a bit of a storytelling role. So you were even, as a teenager, you were kind of forward-looking in many ways, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think to your point, that's why I enjoyed it, because there was a story behind the numbers. And I think that is, if you ask me, what would I encourage people to focus on as they go through their careers, especially in finance, I always mention communication. There's lots of other skills that you need to have, clearly, but communication has been in the past, I think, underrated. As an important skill to have as a CFO. And I talk to my team all the time, and I actually have coaching in my team. So across all of my organization, they have access to communication coaching, which I support and fund, because I think it's really, really important. And I want everyone, it's not natural for everyone, but it is a skill that you can learn. It is a skill that you can build on over time and get more comfortable doing. And the reason I talk about the importance of communication is we have access to such important information, to so much data. If you can't explain that to other people who may be not financially minded, may not understand, the details of the area that you're talking about, if you can't explain that in words that they understand and influence them, then it's kind of wasted. So all of that work that you're doing behind the scenes, whether it's accounting on the technology, the technical side of accounting, whether it's the data and analytics side, whether it's the planning, forecasting, tax, treasury, investor relations, ultimately, there's a consumer, a customer at the end of the journey that you need to explain this to. You need to explain your findings. You need to explain why this is important, and you need to be able to influence outcomes. And I really think without good communication skills, you can't do that. So that's what I'm teaching my kids here at home. I'm just like, try and get used to being able to tell a story, get used to being able to do presentations or explaining your point of view and speaking up. Otherwise, all of the hard work that you've done doesn't get utilized in the best possible way.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I often tell controllers who are aspiring to become CFOs in their next one, I'm like, look, there are a million people with the technical skills to be a CFO. If you want to really separate yourself from those people, work on your communication, work on your strategic acumen, work on your leadership skills. And to me, and there's obviously not a million who can become CFOs, but there are a lot of great controllers who just don't have the communication skills that's expected of the modern CFO. So kudos to you for recognizing that.
Thank you. And what I say to those people as well, because quite often I think when I think about my career and I think about my journey, I think about breaking through boundaries or barriers to a certain extent. And sometimes they are put upon you from the outside, but quite often it's barriers and boundaries that we put on ourselves. So we think that the number of accountants and controllers who say, I can't present, I can't communicate, I can't tell a story. And it's like, it's not that you can't, you just need to practice. You just need to say to yourself, this is something I'm going to do, and invest like any other skill. We've spent years and years and years learning to be accountants. I did it at school, I did it at college, I did my chartership. I put years and years and years into being a technical accountant. You've got to put the same investment in being able to be a communicator. It's not something that just comes to you overnight. It's not something that you can just wake up and be able to do. And that's what I tell people. It's like, don't put these boundaries and barriers on yourself. Give yourself the challenge to become a better communicator and put the same time and effort into becoming a good communicator as you already have to become a good controller or to become a good financial analyst.
Absolutely. That makes sense. So I want to reference your career journey. And, the part that I think is really intriguing, you had a great run at HP, starting out, I believe, in the UK, and you had a couple of tours of duty in Switzerland as well along the way. And I'd love to learn, You must have worked with some of the smartest people, not only in finance, but generally. I'd love to explore that journey a little bit. What are some of the key lessons you learned? Maybe some mentors you had along the way that set you up for your CFO role that you're in today?
Oh, absolutely. And I was very fortunate. HP are one of those companies, and it came from the top, who really support, nurture their employees and give you lots of opportunities. And I think I'm a great example of that. And Teradata do the same as well. And I've just been very fortunate that the companies that I have worked for and the people that I've worked with have just been extremely supportive. And to your point, I started in the UK. And there, was the first manager I had there, I think really found a different way of mentoring me and kind of pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And I remember just thinking, I'm never going to be enough. Like, I'm never going to be able to get there. But he knew that I would respond to that challenge. So I had a manager in the UK who it was never quite enough. It was like, okay, you've got that. Now what about this? Now you've got that. Now what about this? And honestly, that was the best thing that ever happened. And it turned out, in less than 2 years, he was actually he knew he would be moving onto a new role and was trying to set me up to not necessarily take his role, but be able to manage things in the interim, and add more and more value and get up to speed quickly. So that was my first experience. My first 2 years in HP, I just felt like I was being pushed and pushed and pushed, but in a supportive way. Not in an aggressive way, but sometimes I did walk away and just think, am I ever going to be enough? Am I ever going to get there? And I think that made me realize what I was capable of. Talking about breaking through boundaries, he was just trying to push me over the next barrier that I was putting myself, pushing me through the next boundary. And he really did focus on business enablement. Our role here as a finance organization is business enablement. That was in the UK. And then, as you mentioned, I went to Switzerland. So I lived in Switzerland. Well, I worked in Switzerland, but lived in France. They're very close. You just drive across the border. And that was a great experience. And that was my first international experience. And believe it or not, I've not lived back in the UK since then. So it's been many, many years now since I've been living in the UK. I clearly visit and return home regularly. But I haven't lived in the UK since. And again, that was kind of a push. That was kind of there's this great role. It's a promotional role. It's a different role to what you've been doing up till now. Would you like to do it? Would you like, and again, a bit of a push. And I was like, let's go. So my husband and I packed our bags and we haven't looked back since. So that's been great. And I think one of the things I have to say through my whole career at HP, previous to HP, but also at Teradata, it's about the people that have really supported me along the way. And sometimes it's people at work, but also my friends, my family. My dad, who unfortunately is no longer with us, was another one who just encouraged me and pushed me maybe to apply for jobs that I wouldn't have otherwise applied for. I didn't think I was qualified for. And he's like, well, you don't know until you try. And I think it's that push of other people and that encouragement and support and, teaching me perseverance, because obviously it doesn't always go perfectly. That has been really, really important and had a huge impact. And I see now as my contribution back, to others, whether it's at Teradata, whether it's other people, across, whether it's women in tech, whether it's finance people. I always see it as my role to give forward that experience and my experience, because I was so lucky for people to do that. So really, really important. And I would encourage, if I was going to give any advice, we talked about communication. My second one is about networking. It's about having a support, a network, a team of people to support you, not people that are just going to agree with you and tell you that you're wonderful. I mean, it's nice to hear that, but sometimes you need to be told some hard truths so that you can change and so that you can improve yourself. So I think having that, group of people around you, both in work and outside of work, to support you along the way is really important. And I find it really important to me now. I try intentionally to network with other CFOs, intentionally to network with the business team, to spend some time, whether it's with the CRO, the chief marketing officer here at Teradata, because I know I can learn from them. They come at things with different perspectives. They've got different experiences. And so I really would encourage people. And it's not normal for us accountants. We're not extroverts naturally. And we only have a certain amount of energy when it comes to being social and when it comes to getting out there and chatting. But we can all do it. Again, it's a learned skill. We can all do it. We just need to know when we need to take a break because we normally get tired. So, and I'm the same. I come across very extrovert and social, but I get to a limit where my bucket is empty, and then I'm like, okay, give me some numbers, give me some reports, give me data, let me just listen and review rather than be the one that's speaking and talking. So yeah, that started at HP and before, to be fair, when I worked at Compass Group and SSP, and has been a big help for me in my career. And saying yes to opportunities, like saying yes to Geneva, saying yes to moving to the US, which is where we're now settled. We kind of went back and forth between the US and Switzerland a couple of times, and just saying yes and seeing it as an adventure. And I remember the first time we went to the US, my husband and I went on a preview trip, and there was just us then. We didn't have any children at the time. We went on a preview trip, and after the preview trip and going around San Francisco and what have you, we were like, we kind of like Switzerland. Like, do we really want to do this? Like, we're really happy near Lake Geneva, near the mountains, like Chamonix, Verbier. We're like, not sure we really need to go and live in the Bay in San Francisco. And I said to my husband, I was like, it might not feel like the perfect move right now, but it's an opportunity that's not going to come along every day. And what's the worst that can happen? We don't like it, and we'll try and find our way back. We'll try and find an alternative path. So we went for it, even though we were a little bit unsure, and we loved it. We absolutely loved it. We had the time of our lives. And it just goes to show you don't know. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know what the opportunity will turn into. And for us, it turned into a life-changing moment, and we're now very settled here in the US.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never known anybody that lived or worked in Switzerland and said that they really regretted doing so.
Yeah, well, that's true. Exactly. But it's different. It's a different culture. It's a different language. It's a different style. So you have to make an effort to fit in. You have to make an effort. I mean, the area and the location, the country is beautiful, but it's very different from the UK. And then the US is very different as well. So but yeah, to your point, it's an experience. And even if you do it for a few years, you can't say no to those opportunities that come along, because they definitely don't come along every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the United States is so big, but even like San Francisco is, it's very different than Dallas, Texas, or Washington, D.C., right? So, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously my fellow Bostonians will have to forgive me, but I consider San Francisco and New York to be the two greatest cities in America. I would probably pick a handful of European cities over either one of them. We'll have to edit that part out, maybe, huh?
I've already converted you. I like it.
So, well, I've always sort of thought London was maybe the greatest city in the world, or Geneva, or something like that. But, Brussels is certainly in the conversation, in Paris.
There's so many great places, Jack, to your point. It's like, who can choose? I mean, so if you have the opportunity to experience any of them, just say yes.
Yes, and I have a hunch that you'll experience all of them before things are over. But so you got to, at HP, you're a global controller. And then the opportunity came along to be the CFO of Teradata. And if I'm not mistaken, this is your first CFO role, and you've been in it for a little north of 3 years. But tell me how being a controller at HP prepared you for this role, and how the role came about.
Yeah, so it prepared me extremely well, I have to say. And to your point earlier, there's a lot of controllers out there who are very, very capable of being CFOs, and some of them need to believe in themselves to be able to do it. Because I've seen a lot of people that are like, oh no, I couldn't do your job. And lots of people say that, but I said that. I remember saying that to the CFO of HP, going, oh, I couldn't be a CFO, because early in my career. And that's what you need. We need people to say, well, never say never. Just go through the journey, do your best, work hard, take up the opportunities that come along, and you never know. But the controller role, as a CFO, it's very multifaceted, and especially here at Teradata, because I actually have all of the finance piece, but I have IT, I have security, I have procurement, real estate, I have strategy and transformation. So there's a lot of roles, and that's developed over time. I didn't necessarily have strategy and transformation on the day I joined, but that has come over time as I've been here at Teradata. And so it's very multifaceted. And I think the role of the controller, because you have that global view, and obviously HP is a very large company and very global. And I think coming from an international standpoint, having that global perspective, it was very helpful. understanding how the company needs to be represented externally, both from a regulatory compliance, the Qs, the Ks standpoint, but also from an investor relations standpoint, because I was very involved in the investor relations process, the investor days, the earnings, etc. So a lot of experience there. But you're managing the free cash flow, which means you're working really closely with the treasury team about, how we're managing our cash. What does that look like? You're working really closely with them on, what's the impact on our WASO, so our weighted average shares outstanding. So, what does our share repurchase look like? So because you are connected into everything that's going on. And I was lucky enough as the controller also to be head of FP&A. So I had the head of FP&A in my team as well as the accounting team and the shared services team. So that big role just gave you access to what's going on in the business. What do we need to do externally? Brushed up on my kind of technical accounting skills. I came from that background, but did a lot of business finance. So going back to the controller role, brushed up on, my US GAAP and what needs to happen there. And the other area that it really helped with, which is one area that I think many controllers don't have enough experience in to be the CFO, is the engagement with the board of directors. So HP, I think, is fairly rare. Let the controller manage the audit committee. So the CFO is there and attends, but the controller is the person that has the relationship with the chair of the audit committee. The controller is the one that runs the agenda, runs the meetings, and ensures that the content is there for the audit committee. So that relationship of running the audit committee and getting to know how the board of directors work, that exposure also was really key. And I think that was maybe a little bit different to what some people have. And so I would encourage people thinking about want to be a CFO, how can you get more involved? How can you get more connected to the board of directors in some form or another? Because that is a very different relationship. It's a very different way of communicating, of managing, the business, how much and how little they need to know, and finding that balance. And I'll be honest, I didn't get it right from the beginning. I did not get it right from the beginning, and I had to learn from that. And that experience, I think, has set me up extremely well to be the CFO here at Teradata. I have an amazing relationship with the chair of the audit committee here and the audit committee in total, the board of directors, and I've really invested in those relationships from day one. And I think I learned that maybe a little bit, learned it through, through experience of how to do that and how important that is.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I get asked a lot. How do you develop a relationship with the board? If you're only seeing them 4 or 5 times a year, and you're presenting for 5 minutes in a 1-hour meeting, that's hard to develop a meaningful relationship. It needs a little more proactivity and whatnot. It seems like you were despite having earlier called yourself an introvert, it seems like you were savvy enough to develop those relationships from the word go.
Yes, and I did it very intentionally here because I joined during COVID. So not only are you only meeting them once a quarter, then you're only meeting them virtually as well. And now, obviously, we do have in-person board meetings. But when I first started, it was it was during COVID, so everything was done virtually. So I invest intentionally a great amount of time, and some people may be shocked at this, but I probably speak to the chair of the audit committee every 2 to 3 weeks. And we have a one-to-one, and sometimes we have, a group meeting. And that's intentional. And partly, I'm lucky enough that my chair of the audit committee is also a CFO of a software company. So we kind of see each other as peers as well, and we can bounce ideas off each other. So partly it's to stay connected, to build the relationship, but partly is because, it's very interesting to get her perspective, to get her point of view. And she actually now, been here a few years, and she'll actually ask me from my perspective, my point of view. And, she'll sometimes be like, oh, I loved what you shared in the audit committee. I'm going to steal that and use that, with mine, sort of thing. So we have that, but I've invested time, and I was lucky enough that she was willing to invest the time as well. And I think that's really important.
No, that's fantastic. So I want to talk also about your relationship with the CEO, Steve McMillan.
Yeah.
And, there was a research report a few years ago now, admittedly, by who is one of the big consulting firms. And they concluded that the most important relationship across the C-suite was between the CEO and the CFO. It's a true partnership when done well. And it'll, it's critical for the company's success and growth. But what's that relationship like?
So I have I would say, an amazing relationship with Steve here at Teradata. To your point, whether it's the CEO or any business partner that I have worked with, I again know the importance of that relationship. And when you talk about personality indexes, I'm an adapter, and I think that helps a lot, because I kind of look at, how do I need, what is it that I need to be? Not that you change your values, not that you change your approach, but you find a way to be able to ensure that you're a balanced team, sort of thing. So if the CEO, for example, has a tendency, to be focused on one area, I'll intentionally adapt and focus on another area. But at the same time, we try to ensure that we come together to ensure alignment. And with Steve, honestly, it's been one of the relationships that have been the easiest to foster and to develop. He's very good at listening. He's very good at taking input and feedback. Even if he has a strong opinion on something, he will listen regardless and take that on board. And I think that that shows trust and respect to me and to the rest of his leadership team. So I'm very lucky that I have such a great partner. And to your point, it's important that we are aligned and that we stay connected and that we're on the same page, because our view is, if there's a crack at our level, it becomes a canyon down through the organization. So Steve and I know that it's really important for us to, sometimes we can have a difficult conversation, but it's really important for us to be on the same page, to push each other. He pushes me, I push him, to push each other, to have good discussions. There's no point being a yes person. There's no point agreeing with everything that they say. That's not what you're there for. You're there to give a different perspective. You're there to give them data and analytics to support the path ahead, to support the decision making. And so I think it's really important to invest and have a really strong relationship, but not to become a yes person, because that is not helpful for the company. That's not helpful for the CEO. So being able to talk openly, to being able to whiteboard ideas, and sometimes just push each other to think of different ways of moving forward. You then know that the path that you then do move forward with is going to be the best outcome, because you've not disregarded potential options along the way. And I think Steve has that approach, not just with me as a CFO, but the full leadership team. Mm-hmm. And everyone has a voice, and everyone is encouraged to share that voice. Now, it's not a democracy, but it is really important to hear people's perspectives from their experiences, to hear their opinions and ideas, to ensure, again, that the decision that we ultimately make and move forward with is the best that we can come up with as a team. And he takes that very seriously, and he's a good listener. It doesn't mean he's not afraid to have an opinion, to make decisions, to move forward, to go fast. He likes to go, but at the same time, he intentionally takes a step back. And we do a lot of that together. Sometimes we try to spend time together in person. We try to spend time together on the phone. We message each other. So we have a very interactive relationship. He's actually on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. So we don't, naturally spend time together. We're not in the office together. So again, it's really important. If he's been traveling and I've been traveling and we've not overlapped, I will be aware of it. So after a few weeks, I'll be like, oh, I think we need to connect, have a good discussion, have a chat, and make sure that we're staying, hip to hip as we move forward. So yeah, really important relationship. Don't take it for granted. Invest time. Be savvy, to your point. Be savvy about how you manage that relationship, and be intentional. Like, I'm very intentional about all of these relationships because they matter, and they really make a big difference, not just to you and your career and what value you and your team can bring, but to the whole company.
Now, that's great. And I'm stealing your line about a crack becoming a canyon. Was that what you said?
If there's a crack at the leadership team level, it becomes a canyon as it moves down to the organization. So, yeah.
No, I'm stealing that one, and I'm not sharing any credit with you at all. So I want to chat with you a little about what's your philosophy on building a team, and in particular, You bring such a global perspective to your company, more so than most people I know. So I'm curious how that perspective has helped you develop a world-class finance and accounting team.
Yeah, so I think the word I keep talking about today is being intentional. And I'm very intentional also about as I build my leadership team and I encourage them to do the same as they build their teams. And the reason I do that is it's very easy to hire people who you connect with and who are kind of like-minded and who you can work very easily with. But what I realize is that you then end up with a room full of people who think the same way, who have the same approach, which might not necessarily be representative of our customers or representative of our team more broadly, and definitely does not bring that diversity and inclusion of thought, to be innovative and challenge the status quo. So I try to think about diversity. So, there's obviously different types of diversity. And I think that's important to remember. There's more than just the male, female. There's more than just the gender and ethnicity. And there's more to diversity, in my opinion, than that, although it's very important to have that too. The other area that I focus on is leadership styles. And so I have now, through experience, I can have a feel for what somebody's style is. And to give you an example, we use a color system called from Insights, and there's 4 colors. And red is I lead with red, which is very be brief, be bright, be gone. Let's make a decision. Let's move forward. Let's challenge what's happening and keep going. But there's other colors as well, and I think it's really important that for example, the green is very kind of empathetic, thinks about the people, wants to reflect on things more rather than the red that go. And they're opposite colors. And what I look for in my team is a balance. So a balance of gender, a balance of ethnicity, but a balance of also leadership styles, so that again, that you're really having a representation of the broader company, of our customers, and also so that you do have someone to say, okay, but let's just pause. Let's kind of dial back the red energy in the room and let's just pause and say, okay, have we thought everything through? Have we reflected on this and really thought through before we go execute? The reds like to go execute, the greens like to reflect. And if you've got the balance, the red puts the pressure on the greens not to ponder, not to take too long to make a decision, but the greens put the pressure on the reds to say, okay, you're going a little bit too fast. I don't think, we've considered anything. And the other colors are blue and yellow. Blue is all about data, analytics, numbers. They tend to be more introverts, very traditional accountants. You won't be surprised to hear my chief accounting officer leads with blue. But it's very introvert. And then you've got the yellows, which are actually very social. They're much more extrovert. They think about the people. It's all about relationships. It's all about, I would say the ones that really drive the vision and drive that. And so having a mix, and I have a really good balance across my team intentionally, and we all bring ourselves along, and we're all very open with each other about, and we know what we like on a good day. And we know what we're like on a bad day. Like a red on a good day is making decisions, moving things forward. Wonderful, wonderful. On a bad day, they get defensive, they get angry, they get frustrated, they get impatient. There's lots of bad traits to these styles as well. And so we can hold each other accountable and be like, okay, let's balance this out of it. So I do a lot of that, and I think that just brings the whole team together. Whether it's making sure that we're a trusted team, making sure that we're helping enable each other, even though we stretch many different functions. So when we work together, it's really important to support each other. So we work across many different functions, but I say it doesn't matter if you're the chief accounting officer, doesn't matter if you're head of business finance, doesn't matter if you're the CISO of the company. You all bring perspective to the table. You can all help each other out. You might not be the technical expert, and that's not what I'm asking, but from a leadership standpoint, from a support standpoint, you can help each other. And so I really encourage the team to do that. And we spend a lot of time focusing on that. I mean, the first thing in every weekly meeting I have with my leadership team, we do shout outs. Give someone some praise, give someone some feedback. Someone either who's on the call or someone in their team. We spend 10 minutes at least every week saying, let's do shout outs. Let's praise each other. Let's start this meeting celebrating success, celebrating what's going well. and that just kind of sets the tone for the meeting, and then we dig in and get into the difficult stuff, and solving problems. But I think that's really important about how you work together as a team and how you work cross-functionally. And I think we set a good example across the rest of the company of not working in silos, and working cross boundaries. So that's it. And I would say I'm not a micromanager, so I tend to empower the team. I like to be empowered, so I empower the team. But until things go wrong, and then I might become a micromanager because I like details, as you would imagine.
Yeah, your background suggests you would. So
yeah, exactly. So I do like detail. So that again is something that I have to kind of take a step back and let them find the solutions. Let them come with answers and ideas and recommendations. And even though I've probably got lots of them in my head, listening to what they have to say, sometimes they come up with better perspectives than I do. And I recognize that. I recognize I'm not the one with all the best ideas or solutions. I'm not the only one that can, come up, and help make decisions. So listening as a leader is really important. There's no point in having all that diversity and all that skill and doing all that and then not listening to them. I mean, it's complete wasted effort. So yeah, we spend a lot of time listening to each other, sharing each other's thoughts, views, and ideas. And then obviously we have to, sometimes make some tough decisions and move forward. But then we're all behind it and we all understand and support it. And you can move forward much, much quicker.
That makes sense. And I love what you said about starting meetings with sort of complimenting your team, because you happen to be a Seinfeld fan, Claire?
Yeah, a little bit, yes.
Okay,
Not
yeah.
recently.
I don't know if the phrase airing of the grievances mean anything to you.
Yes.
But that was just for people listening. There was an episode, there was a holiday Festivus. I don't believe it's a real holiday, but one of the traditions was that the airing of the grievances, where everybody would go around the table and list the ways that the other people disappointed them in the past year. And I had a boss, we started joking that it was the airing of the grievances. He started every meeting by insulting us and telling us how our work was substandard. So, but no, I love your philosophy on building teams.
Well, I take it the other way. I start with the positive, and rather than the area of the grievances, doing the shout outs, the recognition up front, and it just makes you stop and pause and kind of go, okay, what has gone well this week? I mean, we meet weekly. What has gone well? Where are people going the extra mile? Where have we made good progress? Because it is very easy to just jump into everything that isn't going well. So
no, that makes sense. And we will post Claire's email on when you air it. You're going to be inundated with 200 or 300 resumes, I have to think, based upon your leadership.
I would love that. I'm always looking for great talent.
Oh, I was kidding, but maybe I can do a service here.
Maybe you can.
So I'd love to chat a little bit about what's going on with Teradata. And I'm curious, what do you see as the five, or well, not the five, but whatever number of some of the biggest challenges and opportunities facing the company over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I would say the biggest opportunity that we have as a company is how do we help our customers who, as I mentioned previously, are dealing with such large amounts of data. How do we help them get the best out of their data, especially now in the world of AI, generative AI, etc.? So huge opportunity. And how do we enable them to do that both on premise and in the cloud? And so in that hybrid environment, lots and lots of companies have huge amounts of data which they're not necessarily getting their full power and ability out of. And so our job and our opportunity is, with AI, more and more data is being generated, more and more information is being accessed, and to enable customers to believe that they can trust the output of AI, so trusted AI at scale. And so that's one of the things we talk about a lot here. And trust itself when it comes to AI means something. Obviously, AI itself means something, and then at scale means doing it with the biggest enterprises in the world. So that's our biggest opportunity. And a lot of companies right now are still working through that. There's been a lot of hype over the last 18 months now around generative AI and AI. But I think companies are still figuring out, how can they get a return? How can they really use this information and these capabilities better? So we built some of AI capabilities into our products. We're working with our customers to be able to leverage the data that they already have in a better way moving forward. So I think that's probably our biggest opportunity, is trusted AI at scale. And that's what we talk about a lot here at Teradata. And I think the other thing that we have a big opportunity on is, as the data continues to grow, being able to be price performant. So when we talk about price performant, I mean, some of the customers refer, I was with a customer yesterday, one of our financial services customer. They are running hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of queries on a weekly, monthly basis. Like, it's just insane. I don't think people realize that, how many queries get run at these companies. So clearly, the cost of those queries are really important because they add up. If the cost per query is high, as you scale that up, it gets very, very expensive. And you've probably seen a lot out there, in the sense of, companies getting surprises as to how much, some of their analytics is costing them. And that's one thing that Teradata does really well. We have the lowest cost per query in the industry, and we have a really good operations dashboard, so you don't get those surprises. So you can manage it from a cost standpoint. But yeah, we really focus on really getting that cost per query as low as it possibly can, so that when you do scale, you can scale not only with performance, but also in the, I'd say, the cheapest way possible, because we're price performance at scale. So lots of opportunity there as we continue to grow our relationships, our partnerships. As we move forward, we just had a new CRO join us, which is exciting. So he's reorganized his team, and he's very much focused on kind of industry verticals and the geographies across the world. So we've actually got rid of our regional structure, for example, because he wants to be closer to the company. So he's trying to take out layers of management and get closer to the customer. So lots of great opportunities ahead. It's been a big transformation for us over the last 4 years. And as I always say, transformations are not linear. So there's been ups and downs. I'm sure there will continue to be so. But we're now over $500 million of cloud when we started with nothing
Wow.
4 years ago. So we've come a long way.
Fantastic. And, one of the things with you being a relatively visible, publicly traded company, you're building a company for the long term, and yet sometimes the markets only evaluate you on the short term, or, what did you do for me in the most current quarter? So as a financial leader, how do you kind of reconcile that? Because you've got to invest in innovation, invest in the team, and a lot of other things for the long term. And yet, there is pressure to hit certain marks in the short term. That can't be easy.
No, it is. It's a very difficult balance. And I think what is really important to do is to agree as a leadership team what it is that you think is the right thing for the company. Align that with the board. We were talking about the importance of board relationships. It's really important that you've got their support with everything that you do, and lay out what you think is the right path, and do scenarios, because not everything works out according to plan. So run scenarios so that you then know what you need to do if a different scenario tends to come about, or if something doesn't turn out as planned, as opposed to being reactive to what you're being asked for from the market, or being reactive. So you need to own your own future. You need to plan it. You obviously have to try and tell the story externally and explain to them why you're doing what you're doing, and be transparent. I think it's really important to be transparent. Not telling the market and investors and analysts things doesn't help. But sometimes you have to tell them bad news. I just came out actually in my last earnings, and we had to give bad news, but it was the right thing to do. Yeah. I felt like it was the right thing to do. I'm glad we did it. From an external street standpoint, it wasn't necessarily what they wanted to hear, but for the longer term, to your point of the company, we needed to do that kind of reset and build up from there. So it's tough though. But once you've done it, you definitely realize, just stick to what your plan is, and try not to be influenced too much on the outside in, which is much easier said than done, let's be honest. But having that clarity and alignment as a leadership team and with the board is super important. Because if then internally people are questioning what the plan is, that becomes very, very difficult to manage. So getting alignment internally and with the board, and then sticking to that plan. And if it doesn't quite work out, having those scenarios that you can follow as you move forward.
Yeah, I mean, transparency is perhaps the number one leadership quality that people value in CFOs these days. So I need to ask you this question, but I'm actually happy to ask you this question. I have to ask everybody about generative AI. For the moment. But I know when you and I spoke previously, you had 3 different ways that you thought CFOs should approach AI. And I'm curious if you could share that with our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, generative AI, it's kind of there's a level of table stakes now. There's certain things that you need to capture and do, just to be able to keep up. And so I think there's a certain level of area. So I focus on what are the table stakes, what are the things that you need to do just to keep up. And you should be using AI and generative AI to do basic tools. Most companies have access to a generative AI tool. We're a Microsoft shop, so we use Copilot, and I encourage everybody to be using that to help them, in the trusted, protected environment to help them as we move forward. The other area really is to be able to, drive better business outcomes and decision making. So that's another area that's really, really important to ensure that you are able to look, like I was talking about scenario planning. Generative AI can be used to help that, predictive analysis and things like that. So generative AI should be used for that. As well. And then finally, being able in the product, actually embedding it into the product and the offering that you're offering to your customers. And that's what we're doing here at Teradata. We've got AI built into all of our ClearScape analytics software, but we've also got products like AI Unlimited, Ask AI, which are all products that you can leverage within our software. So they're the kind of three areas that I push the team. The value add, that what we deliver to our customers, and then the table stakes of how do you drive efficiency, how do you drive better quality, how do you take time out of processes and things like that.
I think that's some great advice. So I want to change gears a little bit because I've only said this about two of my guests so far, but I consider you, Claire, someone people should follow on social media. You've got some great content on LinkedIn. And one thing in particular that caught my eye, kayaking makes you a better CFO. And I'd love to, I know from prior conversations that you're an outdoorsy person. I'd love to chat with you a little about that.
Yeah, so I have my husband to thank for that. He is an amazing whitewater kayaker. He's a raft guide. He's also a skiing instructor, a climbing instructor. He's very outdoorsy. That's his job. I mean, his profession is to be outdoors. And so I'm lucky enough that, we've been together over 20 years. And so he's taught me a thing or two, shall we say, along the way. And as a result, I've got into whitewater kayaking, whitewater rafting, skiing, etc. And kayaking specifically, the reason that I talk about it is it's actually quite scary. Like whitewater kayaking is actually quite scary. And one of the scariest trips I did was the Grand Canyon. So I kayaked down the Grand Canyon. And that was a classic example where I didn't even consider kayaking it. We booked a trip. We're going as a family and with friends. And I just assumed I'd go in the raft. I'd sit in the raft. My husband would row the raft and me and the kids would sit in the raft. And he's like, well, aren't you going to kayak it? I was like, oh, no, I can't do that. And he's like, why not? And this is the thing about breaking through those barriers that you put on yourself, breaking through those boundaries. And so I was like, okay, so then I was kind of, once I got my head around it. So I kayaked the Grand Canyon and it's scary. Some of those rapids are big. They are scary. But what I tell yourself is it's about putting the work in and practicing. It's about keeping a clear head. It's about being able to adapt in the moment. It doesn't go according to plan on every rapid. Something that you think is going to happen doesn't happen. And it's about teamwork because you need someone to help you out. If something goes wrong, it's about keeping an eye on each other and working together. So there's so many things from kayaking and that help me also from a work standpoint, and then work helps me from a kayaking standpoint. And one of them is being out of my comfort zone and proving to myself that with the right attitude, with the right approach, with the right support around me, that you can do anything. And so, yeah, kayaking is something that we do a lot at the weekends. We have a local river. We live near the South Fork American River, so we can go pretty much every weekend, which is nice. Through the summer, I'm a fair weather. I don't really like winter kayaking, I'll be honest, because it's a bit cold. But I'll head to the mountains and go skiing. And the reason that I push myself is partly to believe in myself and give me a challenge outside of work. But also it clears my mind, like having an activity and sport like that you have to focus on. Like I can't be going down, grade 3, grade 4, whatever, rapid and be thinking about, oh, I wonder what that, presentation was. Oh, I wonder, I can't do that. I have to be focused in the moment. And I like that it kind of just completely separates my work and my personal life.
So you met your husband in England?
Well, great story as well.
So,
Nepal.
oh, Nepal. Okay. Oh, that.
So,
Okay.
so he ran a company, a Kayak Nepal. The company was called Kayak Nepal. And my brother and I booked a rafting trip through his company in Nepal. But he happens to be British. We happened to live in the same village when we were 6 and 7 in the UK.
And you met in Nepal.
And we met in Nepal. We got on really well and we stayed in touch via email, the days we used to email each other because, mobile phones was too expensive. And one day he said, I'm coming back to the UK. Can we meet up in London, etc.? Anyway, one thing led to another and we ended up staying together.
No, that's fantastic. Because when you were describing him, I'm thinking back to when you said you had the choice between Switzerland and San Francisco. And I'm thinking, gee, how's this fella going to vote on that one, right?
Well, like I said, I think he was happy enough to stay in Switzerland. But now we live near Tahoe, so he's happy because he's near a river. He's near Lake Tahoe, so he can ski. So we've got the best of all worlds now. Got the US, got the mountains, got the rivers.
That's fantastic. But yeah, and last we spoke, he was actually taking a vacation in the Grand Canyon with your son and nephew, as I recall. So
yeah, my son is 11 and he's done the Grand Canyon 3 times. How lucky is he? So, and he just he didn't kayak the whole thing, but he did kayak some of it this time around. I think his goal is next year he wants to kayak at the age of 12, wants to kayak from top to bottom. So, but yeah, it's not just about the kayaking though. It's about the adventure. You have no contact with the outside world other than via like a satellite phone. You have to take everything in with you and everything out. So all your food, all your water, you have to, and you have to take everything out with you as well. You can't leave any trace. And you're on there for at least 16 to 18 days. And you go down the river and you have to find somewhere to camp out. And we've done it as a family. My daughter was 6 the first time we did it. So my daughter was 6, my son was 7 the first time we did the Grand Canyon. And it's a lifestyle choice that my husband encourages us to follow in my spare time. And I couldn't be happier because it's just a great family time, great experience, but also, pushes you as a person and makes you appreciate things, makes our kids appreciate what they have when they come home.
No, that's fantastic because you've got you're CFO of a public company. I believe you're on a board of directors as well. So, I always ask, how do you do the work-life balance? But you already sort of answered it. You're an outdoorsy person. That's what keeps you sane, it sounds like.
It is difficult to balance there, but you have to use those weekends that you have to, and even if it's just kind of like a half day, you have to force yourself to do it. And the same with the family vacations. I really, maybe coming from Europe where they kind of, it's a 2-week holiday every summer is the norm in Europe. And I do try and do that. I do try and have at least 1 2-week holiday with my family every year, sometimes in the summer, sometimes, over Christmas and New Year. And I think that time is really important. And I'm not saying I never look at my email. No one's that good. Do you know what I mean? But just having quality time and being present. And you come back revived, you come back renewed. And that's something I think a lot of US people have said to me. I was like, oh, how can you do that? I was like, well, you make sure you've got the right team and you make sure that you set everything up before you go. And you can be available. Well, in the Grand Canyon, you can't. But, in most places, you can be available if there was an emergency. But quite often, there isn't an emergency. Quite often, everybody can wait another week until you get back if it's that important. So
they don't have Wi-Fi cell towers at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I'm shocked.
They do not. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no phone reception. There's nothing other than being able to use a satellite phone. So.
Fantastic. Well, this has been wonderful. My closing question is always, I'd love to get any advice you have for the next generation of CFOs.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about it, but I would like to just remind people, push yourself forward and believe in yourself. There's many times in my career where I would not have made a decision or not have made a move without people around me pushing me to do so, because I believe that I couldn't do it. So believing in yourself and creating that, support network around you is really important. Don't underestimate the importance of that. I think also we talked about communication. I think that's really important, communication and helping each other out. It's not a competition. I kind of grew up thinking that everything was a competition. And I would honestly say I started out my career feeling like I was having to prove myself and try and be the best. And I think as I've got older, maybe a bit more experienced, a bit more mature, I've realized that's not the case. It's not a competition. Getting there together is actually more fun, more effective, and a better outcome than you just going alone. So that would be my feedback to people, and always happy for people to reach out, have a career conversation. I say that to people: don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to, if there's somebody that you want to hear from, very rarely do people say no. They might say, I can't do it tomorrow, or I can't do it next week, but very rarely, if someone says, can I have a career conversation with you, they'll say no. I've never, ever said no in my whole entire life. So yeah, I think whether it's me or whether it's other people that you look up to and want to learn from them or just get to know them, reach out. And I think we don't do that enough. And I know I don't do that enough. So I'm going to take some of my own advice as well.
Thanks again to Payhawk and Plantville for their support of the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. Rock on!
Thank you for listening to this episode. To continue your exploration of this role that focuses on strategy, leadership, finance, and technology, listen to more episodes of the show at rockstarcfos.com. Join this revolution, episode by episode. Push yourself to achieve great things and unlock the best opportunities available to you. CFOs are creating a legacy, and it's time for you to leave your own unique imprint on the world today. That's all for now. See you on the next one.